welcome to the latest episode of the Good Dram Show with me, Chris Goodrum. Right, okay, so, what am I up to today? Well, as you can probably remember, back in the summer, I was fortunate enough to pay a visit to the St Georges Distillery in Norfolk, and had an interview with David Fitt, the distiller, which you should well have seen, as I did that episode a while ago. But also while I was there, I had a chance to have a chat with Andrew Nelstrup, the owner. We popped over to one of the warehouses, tasted a few bits and pieces, and just had a general chat about things. So this is the episode of the show dedicated to that. So I thought it would be quite interesting to intersperse the stuff that I shot at the distillery with some of the stuff that we tasted. So well, that was the plan anyway. So obviously I'll explain a little bit more as we go along. But shall we start with a little bit of the footage then? So run VT.
These are bourbon.
Yeah, I mean they're all kind of full bourbon. Convenient?
Everything, most of it's Claremont strings, which is convenient.
Yeah.
So we do virtually all our whiskey is in bourbon casks, and then this is the play area, I suppose.
We started recording yet?
Sort of Burgundy casks and Portuguese Cabernet Sauvignon, Oloroso sherry casks, proper sherry casks.
Yes.
These are my retirement present to myself, I think.
Yes, David was saying that you are the sherry aficionado. Yeah, but he's saying that
if we want to, because we're so much hotter, loss is running at 6% or thereabouts,
really?
we will never get a 30, 40-year-old out of a bourbon cask. It's just evaporating too fast.
Yeah.
So the only way to do it is move on to a sherry cask. And again, thicker stays, denser wood. They will last longer, but they're still not going to make it to 40 years. So these big brutes were brought in, and they'll sit there until Father or I retire. Hopefully, they'll never be enough for general release, but at least once every now and again we'll be able to turn around and go, yay, 40 years old. I won't care by then anyway. So, I mean, this is the play area we've got. This is, we think, England's only sherry cellar.
Oh, okay, right, yeah.
So it's quite convoluted. It started off, in order to get some really top-notch old sherry casks, we agreed to buy the contents.
No, that was clever.
So, which we didn't really know what to do with.
But the thing is, that was one of the things, one of my premises about sulphur sherry casks was the use of sulphur was, why not buy it with the sherry in?
Yeah, no one can touch it then.
Exactly.
Yes. So that's what we did, and then we brought the sherry back. Thought, well, we'll add some whiskey to it, put it into bourbon casks, and then we'll get some more. And it's ended up now that we use a proper Solera system. So we're sucking out the bottom when we're bottling our PX, and then dribble it all the way down. Next time we've got some sherry on the top. It doesn't. What we do now is we buy the sherry bulk, 14, 15-year-old Pedromes. We season virgin oak casks with it for a year, then take that out of it whiskey, pop it in the system. Brilliant. So we get totally unsulfured, perfect sherry casks. We have made ourselves, and we can control exactly what we do. And then we've got this. One day there'll be ancient sherry coming out there, just like it's actually really good, nice drink. And then we do these little ones. When we first started, of course, everyone's desperate to get whiskey as fast as possible.
Of course, yes.
So much like McNamara or anywhere else, we did tiny casks. The theory was good. It was these older cooking style ones.
Yeah.
But we didn't realise, and nobody knew, we're so hot. It's maturing whiskey in months rather than years.
Really?
And it's not. It doesn't taste the same. You can't mature whiskey in X months. It gets colour, but it never quite loses that sharpness.
Yeah.
Really.
I mean, David was basically saying that he wouldn't have wanted to bottle it.
No.
But as part of a vatting together of various casks, it gave it some
Gave
serious
it.
oak character.
Well, and so yeah, we've moved things around. But what these are for now is we'll fill a few up, and then if you turn up in your car and go, I want one of these for my bar at home. Quite simple. It's there. It's matured whiskey already.
That's brilliant.
Can we
take it home?
taste a little bit?
Yeah.
That would be
I
great.
don't know how old this is. Let's have a look. So that.
Is that your Christmas
That has
present,
got-
hun?
That has got some serious colour. I mean, that.
So it's still not mature.
So how long?
What's the date today?
It's the
Oh, yeah.
9th.
So the spirit was made on the 22nd of December 2010. So it's 2.5 years old.
2.5 years. And look at that cut. I mean, that is incredible. I mean,
Oh, and
that-
actually, that has been in there 2.5 years.
2.5
So
years.
right.
This is. That's big oak.
It's huge.
God, that is just monumental, isn't it? I mean, it's huge vanillins, coffee. I mean, it's just you can't take. There's no distillery character whatsoever coming through on that.
No. It's an interesting dilemma because if you take one of these home and put it on your bar in the pub or on kitchen at home, they actually work really well for a while, and suddenly we think they'll turn and become too oaky. So we're telling people the moment you think that day comes when you take a bit off for a drink, and then you've just got to empty it, fill it into orange pop bottles, anything that's sealed. But at the moment, it's really good.
It's
Yeah.
sweet, loads of vanilla, loads of white chocolate. I mean, yes, you put a little bit. I mean, it reminds me a little bit of the Tomatin Legacy. What they've done is they've used virgin oak
Good water.
and first fill American oak, and it's just such a lovely balance.
Yeah. That'll be forecast. I mean, it's a nice drop.
Now it's getting a bit grainy. I mean, I find on sort of old grain whiskies, because they've taken up so much oak,
Yeah.
it has that almost
Terrified of
grainy, but I'm
wasps.
getting a bit of citrus now, a bit of sort of orange.
Video. Where is it?
That's long gone.
God, I'm terrified of them, literally. It's going to be on the video.
Yeah, that's lovely. That's sweet, that's soft.
Yeah.
Getting a little bit of citrus now, you cut it with water, but I still think that would be quite heavy going as a bottling on its own. But
And you'd only have, 40 bottles. Yeah, wouldn't go very far.
absolutely.
I was going to think, what else can we have fun with and have a taste? How about something out of a...
That's the image.
Well, that was
Quite
the image is fantastic, but me with the wasp by the legs, you know, that was classic.
Right, so basically the plan was to do a sort of like a tasting here with a sample of what I tasted there. So as you can see, we were tasting, or I was tasting from a very small 30-litre American oak cask, and the distillery kindly sent me some samples. Unfortunately, the 30-litre oak cask sample they sent me was a sherry cask rather than the American oak one that we tasted. So I'll taste it anyway. So I mean, basically, as you could see from the film, lots and lots and lots of oak, and that's the thing with small casks. Obviously, there's less spirit, so there's more surface area in contact with the wood, and it just picks up the wood so quickly. So, like I said, this isn't from a 30-litre American oak, but a 30-litre sherry cask. Probably, I'd guess, about the same sort of age, and as you can see, quite an intense colour. So, let's see what the nose gives us on this one, shall we? Oh, that's got some alcohol to it. Like the American oak cask, there's a lot of oak, obviously, a lot of sort of sweet sherry, Sauternes, licorice, prune. but there's also that real intense graininess, that sort of wood tannin and spirit character, and it's really very intense. It's like I was saying, it does have a little bit of a grain like whiskey character, and that is just because of such an overt oak character, so much oak that you're sort of almost smelling the grains of the wood, you know, and it is incredibly huge, very earthy, lots of licorice, bit of tar, a little bit of a floral note. The sherry's sort of going a little bit floral, a little bit like violet, maybe hyacinth, possibly. There is some, you know, some nice American oak vanilla, and so I'm guessing this is probably one of the. This was originally a 30 litre American oak cask, which they obviously then seasoned themselves with PX. But lots of coffee. It's a big nose. Palate. Wow, it's got some alcohol. Oh, it's about 60 or something odd percent, I would imagine. Certainly in the upper 50s. Very drying. Not particularly bitter actually, the finish, but very drying. Lots of tannins and the alcohol all combined to really dry the finish. But it's big. It's got lots of juicy dried fruits, some prunes, some raisins, some sauternes, licorice, tar, sweet treacle. It's a big one. It's a big sherry monster. Can't really taste a great deal of distillery character, but that was very similar to the American oak cask. Although when put a little drop of water with it, it certainly sort of brought out some citrusy character, which was, you know, from the spirit. Really earthy, really succulent. I mean, you know, sherry freaks will love this. I mean, it's just, you know, and they do sell the casks at the distillery. I think they're about 1,400 quid for a 30 litre cask. So yeah, not bad at all. You know, you get 40 odd bottles, and you know, if that's your kind of cup of tea, then, you know, go ahead and go for it. So let's put a little drop of water with it and see what that does to it, shall we? Getting more of the American oak character now, more of the vanillins, the caramelly oak. It's all sort of pushed the sherry to the background, although it's still there. It's kind of a lot lighter, a lot more sort of crystallised. Still not getting exactly a huge amount of distillery character, but then I'd have been surprised if I had it done. I can probably, there's a little bit of citrus maybe, bit of orange, bit of perfumed orange. I mean, this is really intense still, but, you know, really enjoyable. Let's see what the palate does now then, shall we? Sweet, succulent, a little bit more herbal now, a bit of camphor, mint maybe, still big, toffee, molasses, treacle, but it's really soft. And you can tell this was seasoned with PX, because it just has that big sort of treacly roundness to it. Yeah, that's really interesting. Really like that. It's intense, real coffee aftertaste, sort of chocolatey coffee. I mean, you couldn't bottle that on its own. I mean, it's just sort of so unbalanced, and like we were discussing on the video, you could vat this in with some other maybe American oak aged, or you know, other sherry cask whiskey, and you know, it'll give it sort of like a bit of a boost. But on its own, this is far too unbalanced. But yeah, really interesting to see. So let's carry on with the next bit of the filming at the distillery then, shall we? Sick.
So this is...
Get a lovely picture here.
Yeah, I picked with my thumb.
No.
Pass the glass under this pipe and I will fill it up for you. Totally different this will be.
Thank you very much.
So that is, do you want to know before or after you taste it?
Fantastic.
I'll taste it first. Now it's quite heavy, dried fruits, rich. First fill American oak. It's got that sort of violety, bourbony kind of character.
Not even close.
Little bit of peat,
Not
possibly.
even close.
Sorry?
Not even close.
Not even close.
Let me try it. I might know.
Remember it's cask strength as well.
Yeah, but it's very phenolic.
We're not, you see, it's interesting.
You see, I'm getting.
I'll give you as much as it is 0 parts vanillin phenol in it.
It's very earthy. I mean, I thought it was light. I didn't think it was heavily peated. It's lightly peated. But
I mean, that is a 5-year-old Sauternes cask.
that's the big sweetness that I was getting.
No, 0 levels of peat. And it's interesting, when we first started, you get impatient. So about 5 and a bit years, 5 years old.
You wouldn't peg it. I mean, it's just so big that it doesn't really have any.
That's about as old as we get here, really. But it's interesting because when we first started, some of the weird casks, rather than anything non-bourbon, we used to taste quite a lot. Some work. We know that rum casks work. We know that sherry works, but wine casks, it's really dry. Yeah, we just need to drink more. Yeah. But the wine casks, you know, some we taste them. Oh my God, we're going to chuck them away. They're no good. And then we've got tons of space. We'll just leave them.
Yeah.
We cost anything to sit here. Amazing. 1 year later, suddenly it's like, oh, yeah, they're really nice.
This is it. It's an imprecise science, isn't
Absolutely.
it? I mean, you know, like you say, 6 months it can be absolutely stunning. Another month, and suddenly it's gone over. We've got too much. But then again, like Dave was saying, you use some of it sparingly with.
Absolutely.
Right, okay, so I couldn't pick the Sauternes cask. I mean, it is really difficult when you're tasting whiskey blind to sort of figure out exactly what's going on. I mean, more often than not, you kind of like work backwards, if you see what I mean. You kind of try and say, well, I know what it definitely isn't, and then, you know, by sort of a process of elimination, you hopefully get to the right thing. But anyway, you know, we're all human at the end of the day. So let's have a bit of a closer look at this particular Sauternes cask. So again, a lot of colour. So let's see what the nose gives us. Big nose, lots of toffee, caramel, bit of dried grape, honey, big and sweet. That's huge. And that's about pretty much it. There's not a lot of distillery character again. It just goes to show that sort of how intense Sauternes casks can actually be. But that sort of luscious honey, little bit of almost a sort of almost a medicinal herbal note. It's raw, it's intense, it's kind of in your face, and again, you would ideally probably want to vat this with some, you know, normal American oak aged spirit to kind of take some of that rawness away from it, but and give it a bit of distillery character as well. But that's really clean, really intense. I'm getting a little bit of spirit note now. Sort of sniffing hard enough, I can get a bit of cereal, a bit of sort of Weetabix maybe, certainly sort of breakfast cereal kind of note. You certainly have to kind of like just get your nose a little bit away from the glass and try and sort of bypass all of that Sauternes sweetness. So yeah, maybe in a few years that mellows down a little bit, who knows. So yeah, that's certainly intense about them. A lot of tannin again. Not so much alcohol. I'm guessing this is probably, I would have thought sort of 52-53% maybe. Again, lots of toffee, real raw kind of feel to it. Coffee, licorice, sort of light licorice. Again, dried fruits, that sort of light honey, earthiness. God, that is a seriously intense whiskey. I mean, although the finish dries out quite an awful lot, still getting the sort of sweetness kind of sat in the corner of my mouth. So I think when we put a little drop of water with that, it should hopefully sort of balance out a little bit, and that should be really nice. So let's see what a drop of water will do then, shall we? We're getting more of that sort of toasted caramel now, that lightly burnt toffee, raisinated fruit. It's still pretty raw. I mean, this is still nowhere near ready for bottling yet, I don't think. It's still quite edgy, and it's got a bit of an odd perfumey sort of, no, I don't mean odd in a bad way, but it's just kind of not quite hanging together. Still very full. Let's see what the palate's on now. Oh, that's lovely. That's really luscious. That's really softened everything out, smoothed it. Got lots of honey again, lots of the caramel, dried fruit. It's got that edginess again, but it's all kind of quite mellowed and rounded. Yeah, some nice honey. That's really impressive. That's really intense, but mellow, rounded. A little bit on the short side. I mean, like I said, you know, it's still a few years away from being ready for bottling as yet, I think, and I would guess that it probably won't be bottled directly out of the cask. it will be probably vatted in, I would have thought. But I could be wrong, you know. There could be some of the casks there that are sort of like developing really nicely. They may well do a bottling that's been fully aged in Sauternes cask. But I think the chances are they'll probably do a vatting. So keep your eye out for that, because that was really nice. I thought that worked really well. I think again, not a great deal of distillery character, and I think, like I said, if they vat some American oak stuff into it, then you will get a nice balance, because I think this will add a nice sort of degree of sweetness and sort of like toasted caramel and that kind of character to the whiskey. So I think that would be really interesting. So yeah, keep an eye out for that when and if that appears. Right, as you can see, I have bottle number 3. Yeah, look, see, there's a 3 on there. Now, you might remember when I was having a chat with David that I asked him the question whether he was going to go down the route of starting to play with peating levels and do maybe some kind of uber peated English whiskey, and the answer of which was no. And I think, I can't remember whether we discussed it on camera or off camera, but we were certainly talking about some of the experimental mashes he'd been doing, and and he was saying that he attempted to do a sort of 100% rye mash, which just didn't work. It just became a bit of a gloopy mess in the mash tun. So unfortunately, that was kind of ditched. But he did make a multiple grain mash, and this is what this is. And basically, what happened when we finished filming in the warehouse, we were sort of poodling around, and Andrew was showing us where his custom cask, empty cask storage facilities, which he was quite proud of. And as we were coming back from that, David sort of like popped out from one of the warehouses with a sample of this, because he's obviously really proud of what he's achieved. And the fact is, because it's not a Scottish distillery, he can play around with the mash bill and what have you. So basically, this is David's experimental multi-grain spirit, made from barley, wheat, oats, rye, and chocolate malt. And I remember sort of tasting it at the distillery and going, "What on earth is this? This is just unbelievable." So this is a real honour to taste this again, and I'd just like to say a really big thank you to David for sending me this sample, because I can't imagine outside of the distillery very many people have actually had the good fortune to taste this. So it's spent about a year in virgin American oak. So I mean, as you can see, again, very heavy on the oak character, on the colour. So let's see what the nose gives us. This is going to be interesting. Obviously, there's a spirit character. It's like I say, it's a year old. So, but I think you kind of sort of sniff beyond that the sort of spirity aromas. You get some really dark rye grains, a little bit of wheat flake, a little bit of crystallised orange, coffee. Wow, that's an intense nose. Sweet milk chocolate. Really spicy. It's almost got a fleshiness to it as well, like a, yeah, definitely sort of dark wheat flakes, dark rye spices. Really intense, but full. It's got some edgy oak, some coffee, a little bit of natural oils, a little bit of sugar. But really, I think the rye seems to be standing out most at the moment with that edgy intensity, that spiciness. Let's see what the palate gives us then. Whoa. That's a hit. Whoa. Lots of oily cereal and spirit notes, but again, it's that dark rye spices, a little bit of molasses, a little bit of treacle, some wheat flakes notes, almost like a corn fatness underneath it all. It's got a sweetness, which is probably the American oak, the oak vanillins, the little bit of caramel. Really raw, really intense. Wow, that's really chocolatey now on the finish. It's sort of like that lovely kind of milk chocolate with a little bit of a sort of grainy, sort of spicy coffee bitterness, but not too much bitterness. Certainly, I mean, this is all very powerful, and it's kind of not quite melded in together. It's obviously only been about a year in an oak cask, but wow, that's really interesting. It's really different, really impressive. I mean, it's got a stag-like hit. It hasn't quite obviously got the complexity of stag. I mean, obviously because stag is a lot older. But I reckon that give that a few more years, and then, you know, distill some more of it, age it for a little while, vat the younger stuff in with the slightly older spirit, and my God, you're going to have something that's really, really interesting. Whether, of course, they release it or not is up to David, and I guess he will kind of monitor its progress. But you know, if this initial tasting is anything to go by, that's going to be really, really interesting. So let's stick a little drop of water with and see what that does to it, shall we? A lot more youthfulness now, a lot more oiliness. Probably bringing out the chocolate malt more, actually. Not quite so spicy, not quite so rye grains, but still got that lovely kind of edginess to it, that coffee, almost coffee grains. I think this is a wonderful spirit. I really like this. It's completely different, completely off the wall. Power. Oh, that's really chocolatey now. But again, it's got that rye intensity, that sort of, but it's all kind of lusciously coated in this kind of coffee chocolate character. Quite long in actual fact. I mean, yes, again, it's very cereally. It's young, you can tell that, and it hasn't quite all integrated, obviously, but that shows an amazing amount of promise. That finish, yeah, coffee chocolate, absolutely unbelievable. Really, really different, and you know, I do hope that you know, in due course this is released. So yeah, thank you. That's really, really interesting. Right, okay, so let's sum this little tasting up. Okay, so what have we discovered? Obviously, tasting directly from cask is, certainly young spirits from cask, is pretty difficult. You know, it's certainly looking at the samples from the 230 litre casks. Yeah, they're kind of enjoyable. I think if you like sort of big oaked whiskey, whether it's American oak or sherry, then you know it's great fun. You know, a little cask, you know, in your bar or what have you, and pour drams for you. I think it's a bit of fun. You know, it's nothing to be taken particularly seriously. But in saying that, and I think this sort of kind of comes back to the episode of the show I did on the Overeem whiskies, is that I think if you took some of it as a kind of a basis, you know, it's got lots and lots of interesting characteristics, and then you vat it in with some different spirits, you can create something really interesting. Because at the moment, obviously, there's no distillery character, and there's, you know, the balance is all shifted in the wood end. So same to a certain degree can be said for the Sauternes. Very, very intense, again, very, very interesting, very clean. And I think talking about wood policy, it's really nice to see a distillery that's actually you know, doing something interesting with their wood policy certainly with regards to their sherry. I mean, like I said on the film, it's something I've said on several occasions, that, you know, if you want to avoid, you know, sulphur blemished casks, then ship them with the sherry still in them, you know, and then you can use it. And that's exactly what they did. And now they're making, you know, their own sherry casks up by seasoning it there in the distillery. And it's like, you know, literally you can pour the contents of the cask out, and then sort of 30 seconds later you can be filling it with spirit. You know, there's no need then for using sort of like sulphur candles to disinfect the sherry casks at all. And to me, it just makes complete and utter perfect sense. You know, it completely removes the possibility of taint. So why other distilleries don't follow suit is beyond me. So, you know, hats off to the distillery for doing that. So, and the final spirit, the multiple grain, I think it's really interesting. Hopefully, like I said, that the distillery will release it at some stage. Probably not for a few more years yet. I mean, obviously, as it's only a year old, it's got to sit in the cask for at least another 2 before it would be even considered legally whiskey. So who knows? You know, certainly I think it's worth keeping an eye out for, and you know, pick yourself up a bottle of. So again, I'd just like to say another really big thank you to both Andrew and David for sending me the samples and their kind hospitality when I paid them a visit. And hopefully you've all enjoyed this episode of the show. Again, slightly different to the usual, and well, you wouldn't expect anything particularly polished now, would you? Come on. So I guess that's about it. So I'm going to go back to my interesting grain. Good ramming.